The first challenge is the audience that faces you in the mirror. I'm serious, and I'm going to say this again because this is so important. The audience that faces you in the mirror is the biggest hurdle you have to get over.
Welcome back to Land the Talk. I am your host, Robin Nathaniel, and we have a special guest. We have Neha Negandhi in the building. She is a public speaking coach, a TEDx speaker, and just an all-around amazing woman that I'm excited to learn more about. Welcome to the show.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So let's jump right in. What got you into coaching speakers? Because it seems like such a specific niche. Talk to me about your path to become a public speaking coach.
Goodness gracious. Well, let me tell you, one of the mottos that I live by is that I will move mountains to make things happen. So in after my corporate career sort of like fizzled out because I decided to have children and decided to stay home with them, I became a freelance journalist. And after that, I got this amazing opportunity to interview and write an article about a Nobel Peace Prize winner. His name is Kailash Satyarthi, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And after that conversation and after that article, I was like, this conversation needs to expand. It needs to grow. It needs to go to a bigger audience. So then I decided, out of the clear blue, that I was going to have my own radio show. And ask me how many people I knew in the Atlanta radio market, that many, zero. And from there, this was before COVID, I knocked on radio station doors. And this is back then, I think you could have done that and not look like you were a total crazy person. But I knocked on radio stations' doors and I'm like, hello, I need to have a radio show at this station. And they were just like, that's not how it works. And I'm like, well, tell me how it works. And time passed. I did the work and I got my own show. And after doing my own show, where, listen, I've never had a show before. I was a kind of the first time that I've ever been on, hosted my own radio show. And my first guest on my show was CeeLo Green. Like he walked in the studio and was a guest on my show. Yes. And from there, a couple of years that I did this, I had Zach Brown Band and I had B-52s and you name it. I mean, these were people on my show and we were talking about how to create social good using their platform. And it was just something that they all wanted to talk about. And so had my show for a couple of years. And from there, I had an opportunity to give a TEDx talk. And once I decided that this was the right step at that right moment in time to do, after I did it, which let me just tell, I think this is what we're going to get into too. I think there's some misnomers out there because giving a TEDx talk is a lot of time. There is commitment that leads up to giving that talk. I think, Robin, you will agree with me about this. And I think people don't know that. You know, for me, the process was 6 months. 6 months, from audition to the day that I actually, gave the talk. So, and it was like a commitment, showing up, rehearsing, and doing all the things. So, knowing all that, I then decided, hey, a lot of people after the talk were like, how'd you do it? What'd you do? What was the process? And I'm like, well, let me see if is this something that you can like, is this an exchange that we can like really, get into? And it is. And so that's what I do now. I help people take out the ums and ahs of their talk and really elevate their stage presence and deliver a first-class talk.
Awesome. So with your work, Neha, talk to me about some of the challenges that you see consistently show up with your clients and maybe some ways that folks at home could avoid those challenges if they're experiencing the same thing.
Gosh, I think, and I say this a lot to my clients, the first challenge is the audience that faces you in the mirror. I'm serious, and I'm going to say this again because this is so important. The audience that faces you in the mirror is the biggest hurdle you have to get over. If you can understand that you have the natural ability to speak. It is an irrational fear that 85% of the people that live in the United States don't want to speak in public. I mean, they are more afraid of death than speaking in public. To me, that's completely insane. So I really talk about how we can get over the mindset. How do we reframe the mind to then accept the fact that you have this natural voice, and how to get you for it to get all the words unstuck from your throat, because they're all there. If you just massage them a little bit. I know you all can't see, but if you if you massage it a little bit, they are just ready and willing to come out. We just need for you to get over that first hump, right? And once we can get that past that hurdle, then all the doors seem to break open and ready to open. In fact, can I just say, one of my clients I'm working with now is a physician, and she's a doctor. And before she and I started working together and one-on-one coaching, she was like, I don't know, Neha, what am I going to say? I've got to give all these talks. She got this lined up, and she didn't know what she was going to get up there and say. We worked at it. The biggest thing we worked on it is the first thing she said was, I don't know, like, I'm going to lose my memory. I don't know where I'm going to say, how I'm going to say, and what I'm going to say. Let me tell you the biggest hack to do that with. Tell stories. Your talks, you will never get lost in your talk when they are anchored around your stories. So we worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. This woman grew up in a village in South India. Her grandfather was an Ayurvedic healer, had people lined up on the sidewalks waiting to see him, and she didn't think that was a story. I was like, oh Lord, if that's not a story, I don't know what would be. So we started incorporating that. This woman now has been invited to be one of 5 physicians to speak and present at Capitol Hill. So bravo. But this can happen. Once we get over the first hurdle, we can start addressing, the other hurdles about, getting rid of the ums and ahs, getting past the, where do I put my hands? Where do I put my eyes? Where do I put my feet? All of that we can get over. And then we start working on getting you to start remembering your talks using stories.
I have a few follow-ups, so I'll try to get to them all. But I have a feeling once you respond to this one, I'm going to have a whole different path because this is going so well. So you mentioned natural, right? And this is something that is a trigger for me, because one of the frameworks, or my primary framework that I'm working on, is the SYNC method. And one of those pieces is natural. And I find that many folks, and including myself, this is something that I struggle with as a speaker, as a professional, as a dad, is making sure that I am not diluting my message by making it too complicated. So talk to me about being natural, talking in your regular voice, not having to put on your professor cap every time you get on stage, and some ways that folks can find the core of who they are on a natural level.
Oh my gosh. Here's the thing. I don't know any way other to talk, and I don't know how to coach anybody else to talk other than what's in your heart, right? Because as I talk to you, as I've already mentioned, your words, your voice is here. It's already here, right? It's already stuck inside. We just got to find a way to get it out of you, right? And that's what I do. So I don't know of any other way. Now, for me, if you want to put on a different hat because you may be talking to a different audience, great. Okay, I'm all about tailoring your talk to your audience. For example, if you're speaking to a convention of medical doctors, that is going to be a very different talk than you going into and speaking to a convention of social media influencers, right? That is fine. That is fair, and I am all with you, and I will coach you all day long. But we will never compromise on the fact that your voice, the way you present yourself in its full authenticity, and I understand that word has been overused, but it is so, so important when you talk about public speaking, that the root of how you stand and how you talk, it stays the same foundationally. Now we can move some phrasing around, use different anecdotes when we're talking with different audiences. Maybe you pulled out different stories from your experiences that you then relate to your different audiences. Great,
That's
fine.
good.
Two thumbs up. But stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. The audience wants to hear from you because you are there to deliver that message at that moment in that stage. And they want to hear from you. So that is very important.
Very nice, very nice. So I'm gonna go to my next follow up because it makes sense. So the ums and the ahs, I heard you mention that a couple of times, and that's something just in my normal speaking, I have ums and ahs. But as a speaker, I find myself trying to mentally police myself. We have so many speakers in our community who struggle with this, whether it's on stage, ums and ahs, or it's just at the office interactions like that. Talk to me about some tips on how folks can really manage that and be mindful of, those ums and ahs and that's those filler words.
Uh, as I just say,
All right, yeah.
well,
Just, well, man, okay.
so true, right? So true. Look, here's the thing. Use the power of a pause. When you feel the ums and ahs coming, and it's inevitable. That's again speaking naturally. If we wanted a robot to come up there and delete all of our filler words like CapCut does for us in our videos, then that's who we would have had, right? Presenting. So be real. I sometimes when I'm listening to a speaker that I really like on a stage, and perhaps they do have a couple of ums and ahs, I'm like, yes, I relate to that. I'm yes. So a couple of them are okay. If you feel like it's like getting to the point that it's getting you to get lost in your speech, then use the power of a pause. Breathe. When you breathe, inhale and exhale in and out of your nose, it signals to your nervous system that I'm here to be calm. And it is way okay to take an intentional pause and even extend it into silence if you need to get back to your central certain self, right? It is way okay. It is way okay. And it is also okay to give yourself some grace. I think we get so lost into what will they think, and I've just fallen apart, and I forgot, or I X, Y, and Z. And if you are on stage or platform or virtual, and somehow things get derailed, things happen. Okay, number one, own it, breathe, and then say, hey, I was going to talk to you about this, but I'm just going to switch gears and we're going to talk about this now. And then we're going to come back to the other thing that I was just going to talk to you about. And the audience will love you for it. Will love you for it. All right. So I say, pause, breathe, be real with your audience, and then move on with grace. Yeah.
Love that. So you mentioned a little bit earlier that folks that you work with sometimes have some struggles with memorizing, or your client had some struggles with that. So talk to me about some ways that folks can really lean into storytelling. Would you recommend them kind of having like a bullet point, kind of framework for it so they can memorize it, or remember the stuff? Or would you actually, suggest that they write out the story and then just tell it in their own voice? What recommendations do you have for storytelling?
Oh gosh, this is my thing. This is my jam. If we were going to talk about what my jam is, this is my jam right here. So I love stories, and this is what I do. I ask my clients, tell me this, that, and other, and I give them different prompts, right? What's your most this moment or that moment, and we talk about them. While they're talking about them, I'm taking notes because I'm a trained journalist, right? As I mentioned, so I'm taking notes. Then I recap their story in in a something as I would in a published, and I use that in air quotes, way. So I give it back to them in a way that they could possibly read it in an article in a magazine. So it makes it so much more digestible to them. I call it breaking it down into knowledge nuggets. What is the beginning of it? What is the start? What is the problem? What is what is the struggle part of your story? And then what is the conclusion? Tie it all up, make it pretty for us. Okay. And so that's how I present it back to them. All right. Do you have a question?
I have a quick question because I don't want to leave this. Do you type it and give it to them, or is it in the conversation?
No, I type it and give it to them. Yes, I do. I type it and give it to them. And there's several of them, right? Like, this is your story about your childhood. This is a story that you can use when you want to give a problem example about a challenge you've overcome. This is something that you've done that X, Y, and Z, right? We have all these different prompts, and I give it to them in a 3 or 4 page document. Then we practice, we rehearse, because listen, nobody wants to hear the story about, okay, well, the I was, the farm and the band camp. No. Zoom in. This is what I tell people. Zoom in. Bring this in to that point in the story that is going to lead us on a journey to the struggle and then to the conclusion. Right. So we zoom in and then we break it down into knowledge nuggets, and then we share and we practice. And this goes back to the beginning of our conversation. Public speaking, if you want to get those words that are lodged into your throat, flex the muscle. Flex your speaking muscle.
That's good. You're rolling. You're out here dropping some grade A nuggets. It's serious.
Oh my gosh. That means you're going to invite me back.
Yeah. We'd love to have you back. This is season 1 of the show. So we're going to take a little hiatus in the summer for a few weeks, and we'll come back in fall. But we'd love to have you back. Hey, I have another follow-up question. So you talked about these prompts. So a lot of what we do here is also making sure that folks could get access to people like you who have services, but for the people who might not have the resources to hire someone, giving them actionable tips to do it themselves. Could you share just a couple of prompts that maybe could get a self-starter going to see if they could start to, carve out their story?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
As long as they're not trademarked or copywritten or what, I don't want to.
And that's great. No, I'll give you all the trade secrets, all of them, all day long, and then twice on Sunday. Okay. So listen, here's what I recommend. Get a notebook. Any kind of notebook. You go down to the store, you go down to Target, you go down to any store. Get yourself a notebook. When you get a pen and a notebook, which I always have a notebook, okay? You physically write down things. It gets your brain to start working differently. Now, on that notebook that you're going to get, you're going to take on each page, you're going to write a prompt. Things that make me happy. Next page. Things that made me sad. Next page. You just start writing things that I found challenging, things that I've accomplished in life, things that I got a gold medal for or something, right? Like all of these things you're going to write, and then you're going to think, you're going to sit there and you're going to think and you're going to write. These are things. I mean, it can be bullet points. It can be phrases. It can be whatever came to mind. It could be like, oh, I was, talking to my mom and this happened, whatever it is that's going to help you, only you, figure out what that story is. And then after you go through pages and pages of this, you're going to start understanding which ones are the most valuable. Which ones is the audience going to then have the universal theme of, challenge, overcome, a winning moment, this and this, right? Think about all the Disney movies that you and I watch. Think about them all. What's the underlying theme? There is always something, rags to riches, girl falls in love with boy, this or that. There's always a universal theme. So what is that universal theme that every single person in that audience has gone through as well? You find those stories because every single one of us has gone through it. Every one of us. So you find them, you break them down into the knowledge nuggets like you and I have just talked about, and then you start sharing them. And if don't tell me you don't know how to share them either, people, because I know that your audience are social media whizzes. Okay, you've got the influencers of the influencers on this and on listening to this. So get your phone, record your story, and start sharing it.
Very nice. So earlier on, you mentioned the audience that faces you. You have any recommendations for folks to really dig deep and connect with the person in the mirror so they could get over that hurdle?
Wow. Yes. Yes. Be kind. Be kind to that person, because that person that's staring at you in the mirror needs for you to be positive and say, hey, I can do this. I can move mountains too, right? I can move mountains too. And if you start with that if you set your mind to, I really want to tell my story. I want to get rid of the ums and ahs and really share something with the people that are around me. So then I can help them to learn from my learnings. If you could do that, if you can look in the mirror and say that to yourself, I'm here to help people to learn from my learnings, you would really make an impact on those around you. Because I promise you that I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. I want to learn from you. And it's only your voice that I want to hear it from. So please do that. Please be kind to that face in the mirror, because that person needs to feel and hear your kindness and receive it. Receive it, right? When you're speaking to yourself in that mirror positively and you're saying to yourself, I need to, or I would like to, or I intend to serve the audience, then be able and be ready to receive that. Be able to be ready to receive that, because that's important. Because if you're going to stare back at that mirror and be like, no, not for me, I don't know who that person is that's talking in the mirror, no, 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 then, we got to work on it. We got to work on it. We got to be nice to each other. We got to be nice to ourselves. And that starts right here. You got to be kind to that person in the mirror. Yes? Promise
Yes.
me you'll do that.
Yes, yes.
Start small. Start small.
I love that. I love that. Neha, this has been super duper productive. So many nuggets, and we gotta have. I feel like we could do this for another hour, but I wanted to make sure that I save some time for you to let people know where they can get in contact with you, and if they were interested in maybe taking you up on your services, how they could move forward with that.
Oh my gosh. Well, yes. So please go to my website. Go to nehanegandhi.com. Easy said, easier to spell. NEHANEGANDHI.com. It's got so much information on there for you that I want you to first master the audience that's in the mirror. That's where we start, right? And so if that's someplace you want to start, then let's do this. I also have a community called Storytellers Table. So we bring together speakers and storytellers that and we just nurture them. We love on them. We connect. We share. We tell stories. And we really do it in a very positive and affirmative way, which is what I'm all about. So, if you're interested in just getting into a community with other people that just want to hear you and you can listen to them, join us at Storytellers Table. First event, if you will allow me a little plug, first event is on March 25th. So I don't know when this is going to air, but if it does air, it's just March 25th.
Yep, we'll get it out in time to make sure that folks can hear about it. We'll try to get it out in the next week or two. So, Neha, I appreciate your time, but more importantly, I appreciate you taking time to share a little bit of your light with me and our audience. And we look forward to having you come back for season 2.
Thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity. You've been such a delight. Thank you so much.